Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode two of the most important offices in India's democracy, the president and the governor. Now, you might think they're pretty similar roles, just at different levels, right? Well, how they're chosen and the powers they actually have, that reveals the true power structure of the entire nation.
But first, let me ask you something. Who do you think is the most powerful person in India? Seriously, who's running the show? Is it the head of state, the president, or the head of government, the prime minister? The answer? Well, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds, and it gets right to the very heart of how India is governed.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at this idea of ceremonial versus real power. Then, we'll see how these two officials get their jobs in the first place. After that, we'll dive into what they can and can't do. And finally, we'll look at who they actually answer to. Trust me, it tells a really fascinating story about power in India.
Okay, let's jump right in. To really get these roles, you have to understand a core concept of India's parliamentary system. See, it was never designed for one single person to hold all the power. Instead, there's a very deliberate split of duties.
Here's what I mean. The system splits power between a ceremonial head of state, that's the de jure or by law head, and the head of government, who is the de facto or in fact executive. So at the national level, you've got the president versus the prime minister. And what's really cool is this exact same structure is mirrored in every state, with the governor playing the role of the president and the chief minister playing the role of the prime minister.
This quote, it nails the relationship perfectly. A great way to think about it is this. The president has the official stamp of authority, the seal. But it's the prime minister who decides what actually gets stamped. One is the symbol of the nation's authority, the other is the hand that actually wields the power.
So how do these folks get their jobs anyway? This is where we see the first huge difference, and it tells you everything you need to know about who they truly represent. The president's path to power. It's this really complex, indirect election. You and I, we don't vote for them directly. Nope. Instead, there's an electoral college made up of elected members of parliament and state legislatures, and they do the voting. The whole system, as complicated as it is designed to find a candidate who has broad support across the entire country's political landscape, someone who can be a real symbol of unity. Now, what about the governor? Well, in stark contrast, they aren't elected at all, not even indirectly. They are simply appointed by the president, who, and this is key, acts on the advice of the central government. This is a massive, massive distinction. One is chosen by the people's representatives from across the land, and the other is basically handpicked by the party in power at the center. And this means the governor is basically wearing two hats. On one hand, constitutionally, they're the head of the state. But on the other hand, politically, they're the eyes and ears of the central government right there in that state. And as you can probably imagine, that dual role can create, well, a lot of tension.
Okay, so what can they actually do? When you look at their powers on paper, they seem almost identical. But the real story, the interesting part, is in the details, those small but absolutely crucial differences in their authority.
So at a quick glance, the parallel structure is super obvious, right? All government actions are taken in their name, they both call their legislatures into session, they both sign bills into law, and they both make key appointments. On the surface, it all looks perfectly symmetrical. But right here, this is where we see a huge difference in power. A governor can take a bill that was passed by the state's democratically elected assembly and just hold it. They can reserve it for the president's approval. This is a major check on a state's power by the central government. And it's a power the president simply does not have over parliament. And this really highlights their different statures. The president, and only the president, holds these massive, sweeping national-level powers. We're talking about representing India on the world stage, acting as the supreme commander of the military, and, this is a big one, declaring a state of emergency. These are clearly powers for the head of the whole nation, not just the head of a single state. All right, this brings us to our final, and maybe most revealing, comparison. How can they be removed from office? This question gets right to the heart of who they are truly accountable to. So, getting rid of a president is designed to be extraordinarily difficult. First, there has to be a formal charge of violating the Constitution. Then it needs a two-thirds supermajority vote in both houses of parliament. And listen to this, that's a majority of the total number of seats, not just the people who show up to vote that day. This whole process makes the president's job incredibly secure. And this number says it all. In the entire history of modern India, you know how many presidents have actually been impeached? Zero. A big fat zero.
that tells you everything you need to know about the stability and the protection that's built right into the office. For the governor, though, the situation couldn't be more different. Their entire job security hangs on this one, single, powerful phrase from the Constitution. There's no impeachment process. There's no vote. It just says they serve during the pleasure of the president.
So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. The president is accountable to the Constitution, and only the parliament can remove them through that incredibly tough process. The governor, on the other hand, is ultimately accountable to the central government that appointed them. They can be removed, they can be transferred at any time, for literally any reason, and with no explanation required.
And all of that leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question. Given this whole structure, what is the true role of the governor? Are they a vital constitutional link that helps keep the country unified? Or are they really a political tool that creates friction in India's very